Hello guys, this is Bismarck and welcome back to another session on Android tutorials. Today we are coming to have a look at dependency injection in Android. So let's try to have the understanding, the basis of the dependency injection in Android. Then we'll go into its implementation. So this part of this tutorial is to kind of broaden our minds on dependency injection to close all gaps before we delve into the coding part. So this is going to be a long segment of tutorials. Okay, so I'm going to break it down into multiple tutorials so that we can follow the trend. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do and subscribe to my channel so that you can be part of this nice topic that we are coming to treat. Okay, so now let's talk about dependency injection. What is dependency injection? Dependency injection is seen to be a widely used technique in Android programming, and it is proven to be a good practice when this technique is followed well in Android app architecture. In programming, sometimes some class, let's say class A, requires reference to another class B. In this instance, class B is the dependency to class A. And this is what I'm talking about. So let's see this example. So we have this mini class example denoting a car. So this car class depends on engine. Okay, so as a car will always use an engine for its operation. So if you want to objectify this scenario in programming, then what we have to do is we have to create a class like a car class that like we have created here. Then we have to also design our engine, okay, like conceptually design our engine. Then we can give it to the car because a car will always work when it has engine. So that's what we are talking about. But in programming, or yeah, so in coding, how do we get the engine to the car? So that is all that we are coming to talk about dependency injection. So the car is actually depending on the engine. Okay, so in some context we could have a car, we could have the engine provided to the car, or the car creating the engine by itself. But it is known that when we follow this kind of trend, we are going to have a problem in future. For instance, if let's say we have a car that uses electric engine, some car will use, let's say, like a petrol engine, diesel engine. Such cars, if let's say we have a very wide and a big app application about cars, and we want the car to use numerous engines, then what are we going to do? We are going to go back to our code to do refactoring and changes and here and there, and this can break our code. We don't want that. So that's why we have this pattern called DI. That's the dependency injection. And what is more important about this dependency injection that we are going to talk about? So in this instance, we could say engine is a dependency to a car. It is wise to do this to save you in the future, as I talk about, because a car can depend on numerous engines, and as a result, if we follow dependency injection, we don't need to go back to our code to do refactoring. Okay, so that's one of the importance. And for this class we have here is the same car class, but then this car class is creating the instance of engine by itself. So this is where we say is going to be problematic in future, and we do not want that. Okay, so in the normal, let me try to go back a bit. So we have, for instance, this is a car. So with this car in mind, we are saying the car in dependency injection terminologies. We can say the car will be the client, the engine, which is the the dependency. Okay, so with the dependency can also be the service, and we have our injector. That's the dependency injector. Okay, so the dependency injector, what if you are to follow the dependency injector rules, then it means the car shouldn't even know about the engine. It shouldn't know about the engine. All that it cares about is to have an engine, a fittable engine that can work. Or that's all about what the car will concern itself with. But then as to how the engine is created, as to how the engine is modified, the kind of engine, it doesn't care. All that it needs is, okay, I need a petrol engine, or okay, I need a diesel engine or electric engine. Then it will be provided. And who is the one provided this engine? It is the service. Okay, it is the work of the injector. It is the work of the injector to provide this engine to the car. And so do other cars. So car A will require petrol engine, car B will require a different kind of engine. So it is up to the injector to know the needs, the requirements of the client. Then it will provide a service, okay, to it. Fine. So let's kind of talk about what what are some of the benefits of using dependency injection. Why these tutorials? So let's talk about reusability of codes. So we have, for instance, we could have our piece of code that does something, and this piece of code is something that is, or it can be a singleton. And if I say singleton, is it can be created once. The instance of it can be once, and it will occur in the life cycle of the app creation. So with this instance, when we have this instance created, it can be provided, it can be given to any client that wants to use this dependency as a service. So in this instance, if we create this kind of dependency or service, it is created once and it will be provided to any client that wants to use it. So if there's a problem, so this is where the reusability of code comes in. If there's a problem, the all that we have to care about is to locate to the root cause, and the root cause will be where the service was created. And once it is fixed, it will be cascaded to all the clients using this service. So that's very good and peaceful. But as compared to the otherwise, if a different instance has been created in different sources, so when there's a problem, then what are we going to do? Then it means we have to go back to each of the places where this service was created. Then we can fix that same problem, and which is going to be a lot of work. Developers, you don't like a lot of work. You have to make sure you become smart so that you do not end up wasting a lot of time on some trivial stuff. Okay, and then again, we can also talk about the easing of refactoring. Okay, so if you want to refactor something, as I said, because we have this creation or instance created at one particular source, we don't need to go back and refactor here, go back and refactor here. We have only one source, one service servicing all the clients. So we just need to go there and refactor or try to do what we want to do. Then it will be cascaded to wherever it is being required. Then also we can also talk about testing. Okay, it is known that, you see, when we are programming, we have to test your code, your logics, your at least you have to do unit testing. The unit testing, you have to test this our normal logics, business logics, at least, so that we know that they are like they are working. Because as time goes on and this application becomes very huge, it might require us to go back into the code and try to maybe uh do some changes. Okay, and when the changes are done, how do we know that it's not going to break the rest of the code, the structure? So if you test our code, it's very helpful so that we can know ahead of time these changes that we are coming to do will it have an effect on other parts or other implementation. So when we want to do testing, dependency injection can really come to our aid. Okay, so if you have a dependency injection like our injector is actually concerned itself of creating this service for our clients. So doing testing, we can make use of stuffs, creating stuffs, uh, and the dependency injection is a library. Okay, so and these things are there for you already. So if it is testing, they will know how they will provide this dependency or service as a test. Okay, as a test dependency to your clients, and it will work. You don't need to manually handle all this by yourself. So that's one of the some of the importance or the benefits of dependency injection. uh this is way, let me try to go way out of scope a bit. We have principles that guide us in development. We have solid principles. Okay, and in the solid principles, the last part, which is the D is talking about dependency injection. That's the inversion control. Okay, so this, I think, research has it that if you are using dependency injection in your code, it's really beneficial. Okay, especially when we have a multi-layer application where we have this. I mean, your app is modularized. We have data layer, we have business layer, we have presentation layer, domain layer, and sort. So all these, we have all these layer, and at the end they have to be fitting to each other, connected. So if you are using dependency injection, it is kind of, we have it's not like localized. We have our architecture being loose. Okay, it is loosely coupled. It is not tight coupled. It is loosely coupled. So in this instance, this is where we can enable, or we can allow us to, it can allow us to do easy and like effective testing. Okay, so this is way off the topic. When we have time, we delve into solid principles. It's very beneficial if you have this at your fingertips. Solid principles. uh so let's go on. So what are some of the dependency injections, and how do we create dependency injection, and how does it happen in our code too? So we can have, let's, all these are some of the questions that can come into our mind. Let's try to go on to have answers to these questions. Okay, so ways of creating dependency injection. So in dependency injection can happen in these ways. We can have, like the example that I showed you, the engine. So if, let's say, I'm show you this is an engine. Okay, this is an engine class, and this engine class is a field. So we can have it as this. Okay, we can have it as this, and we will have our read only, that is getter of this engine. All that we have to do is the class can just get the engine, but then how do we provide the instance or the object of this engine? So as I said, so the injector will make sure that you get the engine before the start of, let's say, if it has a life cycle, before they create, or before the life cycle starts, the engine has been created for you, so we are not going to run into a problem. So by the help of the injector. And we can also have it in this form, a constructor. So let's try to create our constructor of the engine, and this is our constructor. All that you have to do is just inject the instance of this engine into the constructor, and that's it. So these are some of the ways that dependency injection happens in our code. We can you can inject dependency in your code through a constructor or through a field, through the field. Okay, and it will work. And then again, we can also have answer to this question: how can we create dependency injection? So after all this explanation, then someone can say, oh, then we can also, I can just manage my service. For example, we can use a service locator is also a pattern. So let's try to create a service locator like this and see what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is a service locator. So this service locator, all that it will be doing is to work as an injector. Okay, to work as an injector, then it will be providing these services to all the clients. Okay, so if we want to create our engine, so what we do is public engine, let's say create engine, and it will just create the engine for you, return new engine, and that's it. And if our clients want to make use of this engine, it doesn't need to create it by itself. So this is our car client. So what will happen is, in our constructor, we can make use of service. Or better still, we can make our service this as static. So service dot create engine, and that's it. So the service locator will be the injector, and it will be holding all our dependencies, and it's like it will be servicing all the clients that needs all these dependencies. And this is kind of a manual way of creating dependency in our code. And I do not support manual way of doing this, because sometimes when the code is very big, you go into this class, and we see a lot of dependencies, and someone is, even if you are not managing it anymore, new person will come in and kind of like lost concentration or focus on how these things are working, because the code is very big. So there are libraries that can help you do this dependency injection in a very easy way. So we could talk about, we have in other languages, we have uh Spring. Spring is a dependent, can be like a dependency injection in Java, Java modules or Java applications. And we can also talk about Glassfish, like a lot. So let's go into this. If you go if you if you go into Wikipedia, they talk about dependency injection, and we have this numerous dependency injection. We have World, we have Spring, we have Juice, we have Play Framework, Salter, Glassfish, H, K2, Dagger, and a whole lot. Okay, and if you have time, you can also come here and read about dependency injection, and it will help you. So we have this numerous dependency injection that are hovering around to make our work easy. But in Android, initially we had Juice. Okay, Juice library that helps with dependency injection. That's DI. And now we have migrated to Dagger. We went to Dagger 2, and now we have one famous library called Health. Okay, that's what we'll be considering in our next tutorial. Health, how to use Health in our Android development as dependency. And Health is it's actually it is working on Dagger 2. So even if you have Dagger in your code base, you can convert it into Health pattern, and it will work. So let's talk about so right now we know about how this is how the dependency injection is created. And as I said, we have Juice. But then you see, when it is being created, these libraries too, we can categorize them into two. We have static solutions. Okay, static solutions. We have reflection based solutions. So the reflection based solutions example is Juice library. So it's kind of create or inject this dependency into your application at runtime. Okay, at runtime, it uses reflection. It uses reflection to create these dependencies into your application at runtime. And we have static solutions that also generate your code to connect the dependency at compile time. An example is what is already in use now, which is Dagger 2 or Health. Okay, which is Dagger 2 or Health. So these are some of the overview of the dependency injection that I wanted to talk about before going into the details on how to use Health. Okay, so in our next tutorials, we'll be talking about how to use health. Okay, how to use health in our Android development. So that will be what we'll be talking about. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do, so that you don't lose track or you don't miss this nice and interesting tutorials that will be coming now in our subsequent meetings. So thank you, and see you in the next tutorials, and have a happy coding.